Looking for your fantasy team to not suck? Here's 11 guys in week 3 that you need to add to help you start winning. First up is a hot rookie name that you would have heard about that actually has been producing, Tyjae Spears of the Tennessee Titans. Got 8 carries, 49 yards, got some targets in the passing game. This one's a little bit more of a guy that we could see getting more action as the season goes on. Rick, what do you think about Tyjae Spears?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at week 1, he outsnapped Derrick Henry 34-30. We don't have the snap counts out yet for week 2, but it's clear that they like Tyjae Spears. And more than anything, it's more of a speculative ad, right? We don't think he's going to be somebody to throw in your starting lineup in week 3. But if Derrick Henry goes down, misses time, this is a guy that looks like he's going to get action in both facets of the running game. He's already got 6 targets on the year as the backup. He's got 11 carries so far for 76 yards. He's explosive. So, it's more of a speculative ad. If you have a spot on your roster that you plan on never starting, or if you have 2 defenses or, 2 quarterbacks and one is your clear starter for every week but a bye week, this is a guy that you can stash on the end of your roster and see if anything does happen. He may start getting more work and have standalone value as the season goes on. But if Derrick Henry goes down, he is the guy in Tennessee. And if you get him now, you're going to get him easy. If you wait, he might be tough to get.
If you get him now, you drive all of your league mates crazy when they're scrambling and try to get him. Just how it works. We've got another speculative ad. Saquon Barkley got injured this week. We're not entirely sure exactly if it's a high ankle sprain or what the severity of it is. It sounds like it may not be terrible, but these ankle sprains, they can last. They can drive fantasy owners crazy. Matt Breida looks to be potentially the veteran backup that should be the one that you target if you have room on your roster. Hasn't got a lot of action, but we know he's been productive in time in fantasy. Rick, how do you feel about Breida, and is this a type of running back that you feel safe kind of stacking at the back end of your roster in case of emergency?
Yeah, again, he's somebody that I don't want to drop a player that I could see putting in my starting lineup. But if you have, again, 2 defenses, a quarterback that you never plan on starting except for a bye week, you can stream that guy when the time comes. We don't know what the Giants will do if Saquon misses, right? We don't know if Breida's going to be the guy. So I'm not putting a lot of stock into, dropping him or dropping other guys that are quality for him because we just don't know. Eric Gray could get involved. They could do something else. But Breida is the only one that's really got any action behind Saquon so far this year. So he does look to be the guy. Maybe he's the Zack Moss of week 3 if Saquon misses, because it is a Thursday night game. So it is very likely that Saquon's not playing Thursday night. But he's not somebody that I'm really looking to add and then immediately throw in. If Saquon's going to be out for, 3 weeks, then we might find out Thursday night exactly what they're going to do at the running back position. So again, I'm not dropping any super high quality guys on my bench to get him. But if you have space to carry him, he needs to be rostered for at least the next week and maybe beyond, depending on how bad this ankle sprain is for Saquon.
Yep, definitely keep an eye on the reports. Next up is a quarterback that could be a good streaming option, could be a flex option, has a good relationship with Mike Evans so far. Baker Mayfield of the Buccaneers. He's had around 34 fantasy points already, looked good, not been too crazy with the football so far and through 2 weeks. What are you doing with Baker Mayfield? How do you feel about him? Is he QB2? Is he a leave it on the back end of your bench, kind of QB2, QB3 range? How do you feel about him?
I mean, we got to be careful trusting Baker Mayfield. We've learned from the past, but he's in a good system. He's got good weapons. Rachaad White looked good today. Throwing him the ball on checkdowns. Baker's being smart. Mike Evans is, we all know Mike Evans is that dude, right? And we were kind of worried about him with Baker, but Baker loves him. It's worked out great both first 2 weeks. And if he's going to average 17 fantasy points and you're streaming quarterbacks, then you could do worse right now than Baker Mayfield. We thought about putting CJ Stroud in here, but he's not getting the touchdowns that we want to see. Baker's getting yards. He's got 490 already. He's got the 3 touchdowns, getting a little bit on the ground. It's not fantastic, but it right now it looks safe. And if he's going to score he scored 16 week 1, 18 week 2. You can do that. But I'm not, dropping quality players for Baker. It's only if you're in dire straits with your quarterback situation, if they are not playing well and you want to try to get support. Like if you, for some reason, drafted quarterback late and you got Jimmy Garoppolo, I'd rather have Baker Mayfield playing right now than Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's those types of situations. Or if you just want to look out and look at, bye weeks, if you have a quarterback that's on bye week in week 4, I'd rather get Mayfield in, or do they start in 4 or 5? Whenever they start, I'd rather get Mayfield early while nobody else is trying to get him, and then have your, early bye week filled there with Mayfield, and then you can drop him after that and move on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and he should be readily available. I mean, when you look at his ownership, ESPN, he's like 10%, Yahoo, he's less than 2. I mean, all platforms that we check out are less than 20%, so it's like he's there.
Yeah,
so.
I was just going to say across ESPN, Yahoo, and Sleeper, he's averaging 14% ownership. So he's able, and I think I would feel fine right now. Obviously that can change, but through 2 weeks, he's looking efficient. He's looking like he's not making the terrible mistakes that we've seen Mayfield make in the past. And he's got connection with one of the best receivers in the game with Mike Evans. So it's looking pretty good for him right now.
Absolutely. Next up, Jayden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. Now we know Christian Watson has been dealing with injury. Romeo Doubs has been dealing with injury. Doubs has gotten targeted a little bit, but Jayden Reed today exploded. But he was productive in week 1 too. He got you, I think, 5 or so targets in week 1. He got you 8 targets this week. This guy is in an offense that appears to be throwing the ball a bunch. They don't seem to trust their running backs nearly as much. So how do you feel about Jayden Reed moving forward in this offense with what we've been seeing ahead of him with all the injuries?
Again, because of Watson and Doubs, their injuries early in the season, it's a little speculative. But we're also talking about a 2nd-round wide receiver here. It's not like he was, a 6th-round rookie that has been forced into playing time this year. They drafted him high. They think highly of him, and he's been involved in his first 2 NFL games. So I think you got to put some stock into it. And if you're hurting at wide receiver, I think that there's upside here. Maybe he ends up being more involved than Doubs. Maybe Doubs is the red zone threat, but Jayden Reed is the guy between the 20s that gets you a lot of PPR stuff. We just don't know. This wide receiver group hasn't been worked out yet, right? This is all new. Right. We're only 2 weeks in, and we haven't seen Watson on the field. So there's still a lot of questions of who's going to rise from the crop there other than Watson. We just don't know who that's going to be. And if it's Reed, then he could be very valuable down the stretch.
It could be huge. Next up, Tank Dell, wide receiver from the Texans. Week 1, didn't get super involved, but was targeted a little bit. Got you 4 targets in week 1. This week, you're beginning to see what he can do. And this is the most electric receiver on this team right now. Mechie's coming back from obviously having the illness. So we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. We hope that he turns into a thing because most of us are big Mechie fans. But Robert Woods is a veteran receiver that isn't going to move the needle a lot. He's going to get you consistent targets, but he's not going to be a huge explosive guy like Tank Dell could be. How do you feel about Tank Dell, and where do you see him moving the rest of this season?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in preseason, and the hype got really high, especially in Dynasty. And then, it kind of quieted down going into the season. And we know Nico Collins is the number 1, and he's played very, very well. Oh, yeah. But last week, Robert Woods got 10 targets, and he got 9 more this week, but there's nothing that's exciting there. There's no upside. Tank Dell looks to be the number 2 as we move through the season with a bunch of upside. He's electric. We've seen it. And they told us this week he was going to get more involved, and then he got 10 targets and put up, 106 yards and a tutty. That's what we want to see
2 weeks,
again. Oh yeah. Over the 2 weeks, he had 7 receptions for 72 yards and 1 touchdown this week. So when you see rookie wide receivers getting this type of action early in their career, like literally in the first 2 games, same thing with Jayden Reed that we talked about last, that's good news. That is something that you can kind of profile out to see them continue to grow as the season goes on. And that's why we want to get Tank Dell now. I'm not saying throw him in your lineup right away, but if he keeps progressing this way and we keep seeing this action, he's going to be a guy that you can flex.
And the Texans are going to need to throw the ball a lot.
Yes,
I mean, the defense is young and rough right now. So, I could easily make the case that you see Nico and Tank each get, 10 plus targets a week. I mean, whether they're getting the receptions, that's a whole different story, but that's what you need. You need those targets to get that opportunity. And he's looking good. 70% completion or catch rate this week is huge. I mean, if he can stay on that course, sky's the limit for this guy. Next up, his game hasn't played yet, but Juwan Johnson, tight end from the New Orleans Saints. Now, this guy's still under 40% ownership as well. Last week, got 5 targets, caught 3 of them for 36. Looks to have a decent connection with Derek Carr. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. They got a lot of mouths to feed, and Alvin Kamara hasn't come back from suspension yet. But if you need some tight end help, if you need a guy who you can probably expect to get you in the 4 to 7 targets per week type range with a little bit of touchdown upside, because we know last year he could do that, Juwan Johnson's a decent ad. Rick, how do you feel about this guy going forward?
Yeah, I think throughout the season, he's going to be a big target for them in the red zone. Michael Thomas and him are probably going to be the number 2 in the red zone. Chris Olave is going to be big between the 20s, and he's going to have some long touchdowns. But I think when you're on the 10-yard line, Juwan Johnson is somebody that you have to look for. He's very athletic. He's big. He's got that size, and you can take advantage of that. And I do think that he's going to be, like you said, in that 4 to 7 target range on most weeks. And the thing is that with Olave, Michael Thomas, Kamara, when he's back, you're going, you can't, key on Juwan Johnson, right? That frees him up. That's good, especially when we do get in the red zone and give him those looks. So with tight end being messy again, like it is every year, I don't hate it. The only thing for me is I hate carrying 2 tight ends in redraft. So unless you again have, a really big tight end, good tight end that's going to be on an early buy, I do like getting these guys early to fill in for those weeks, but I'm not prioritizing any tight end that I don't see myself starting every week. And I think Juwan Johnson's on the outside of that just by a little bit, but that could change. We just got to see a little bit more.
Yeah. Next up, a guy that we've been seeing a lot of these first 2 weeks, Zach Ertz from the Cardinals. 18 targets, 12 catches, 77 yards through 2 weeks. Yardage, we got to get up there, but what can you expect? Josh Dobbs is their quarterback. I mean, it's not the greatest starting quarterback, but he's getting a ton of targets on the regular, and it isn't going to stop. This team needs him to be involved to stay in games. Him and Marquise Brown are kind of the lead in target getters in this offense, and it's going to stay that way all year. How do you feel about Ertz, and what do you expect from him kind of as we move forward?
See, Ertz is a guy that I feel like you can pick up and throw in your starting lineup because of the targets that he's going to get. You don't see that out of very many tight ends. And with Arizona, you don't have the touchdown upside that you want to see out of a tight end. But if he's going to get 9-10 targets, and he's probably not even fully healthy yet, right? He's probably not completely back from that injury. As the season goes on, he's probably going to get better. I do see him also getting traded. And if he gets traded, he's probably getting traded to a decent offense that's looking to make playoff push. So you've got weekly startability here with Zach Ertz, and then maybe touchdown upside that comes with a trade deadline move where he goes to a team looking for a tight end. How cool would it be if he went to Miami or just a good offense there for a playoff push and helps you down the stretch when it really matters. He could be a big playoff tight end in fantasy if that move does come. Even if he doesn't get moved, he's getting the targets because it like you said, it's him, it's Marquise Brown, and even James Conner, right? Those are like the 3 guys that they look to. All 3 guys, well, Conner and him could both be guys that are on the move come trade deadline. So there's upside there as the season progresses, as he gets more healthy, and if we see him get moved to a team that has a better offense with more touchdown equity.
Well, yeah, and in those leagues where tight ends are premium and you're getting extra points, I mean, he's a weekly starter because he's probably getting you 5 to 7 just receptions alone. Even if it's low yardage, 40, 50, 60 yards, you're still getting double-digit fantasy points out of that guy just on that alone. So I'm with you. Ertz is a must-add. I mean, when we looked at the ownership and you're seeing less than 40%, less than 40, 50% in most leagues, that's crazy to me. So I'm with you 100%. Zach Ertz is definitely a priority.
Too many targets to ignore for sure.
Oh, absolutely. All right, next up is a guy that has almost clearly already taken over the Chicago backfield. Roschon Johnson, rookie running back. Deonta Foreman was a healthy scratch. It looks like it's him and Herbert. And, he only got you 4 carries this week and 2 targets. But, moving forward, if he's kind of the lead dog in this backfield, you got to think that he's going to keep getting more and more and more. How do you feel about Roschon Johnson in this running back situation?
Yeah, I put down on the notes, I don't know what the Bears are doing. Last year they were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL, and they ran the ball with the running backs 11 times today. 7 of those for Herbert, 4 for Roschon. And on the year, again, he's like Tyjae Spears, except for, he can definitely take over the backfield over Herbert. He's just better. He's a better pass blocker. He's a better he's better catching the ball out of the backfield. And Herbert is a toughener. I'll give him that. But Roschon's he's way more electric. He's the better all-around back. And he's got 9 carries for 52 yards. And he's got 9 targets. He's caught 8 of them for 45 yards. He's just a guy that is going to continue getting more work. This front office is already on the hot seat. They're going to want to play their guys and see how that works out. If you're going to get fired, you better play your guys, right? And that's where they're at right now. They're going to keep pushing Roschon to be more involved in this offense, and they have to run the ball more than 11 times. It's ridiculous. When you can't pass block, why are you not running the ball more? It makes no sense. And both running backs are efficient. And then you're not doing it. Makes no sense. Roschon is a long-term hold. He should be on rosters right now. And, in the coming weeks, he's probably going to be in your starting lineup.
Agreed. Another guy that could potentially be in your starting lineup sooner rather than later, Josh Reynolds, wide receiver from the Lions. He's been steady, consistent, had the relationship with Goff. They don't have J-Mo. They need something consistent outside of Amon-Ra. It looks like it's Josh Reynolds. So far in the year, he's got 13 targets, caught 9 of them, got a couple touchdowns this week. If you're hurting at wide receiver and you need somebody that you can flex in, or especially as bye weeks are coming, Reynolds at least is a consistent, safe floor, doesn't hurt you. How do you feel about Reynolds?
Yeah, I think, I have to eat crow a little bit because even today I said I'm not starting Josh Reynolds. And then he goes off and gets 2 tutties, but he is steady and he is going to continue to get targets as a safety net for Goff. They have a good connection, and teams are going to continue to key on Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though that doesn't stop them. But you're going to have to go to other guys at some points, right? And
right.
And it looks like Reynolds is that number 2 right now in an offense that's going to sling it a little bit. And, I think that in week 3, I'm probably not comfortable starting him. But if we see another week where he's consistently targeted and produces, then he's probably a flex play as early as week 4. I wouldn't really argue against using him as a flex, depending on your other options in week 3. But I do want to see a little bit more.
He's definitely rosterable.
What's that?
He's definitely rosterable, though.
Yeah, he needs to be on a roster right now. And, out of all the wide receivers this week, he is the one that I would go after second to a guy that we're going to talk about later. But that's because of the safety. I don't know that the upside season long is there, though, because you might only get 4 weeks out of him. If J-Mo comes back and takes over the number 2, that might hurt Reynolds. That would be my only caveat, is if you're looking for somebody that can help you all season, he may not be the guy. Now, maybe J-Mo is not as good as we think he is, and we want him to be. Last year didn't look all that great, but Josh Reynolds right now is safety, and you might be able to start him for the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Potentially. Next up is the guy that you probably need to target first and foremost, because who anticipated this? Tutu Atwell from the LA Rams. 17 targets so far this year. Obviously, he's not Puka, right? Like we said last week, grab Puka up, and Puka's just getting insane targets. Tutu's not far behind, though. Like 17 targets through 2 weeks is solid for, a situation where this guy's under 30% ownership in most of the major platforms. What do you think this Rams offense continues to look like? I mean, we don't see Cooper Kupp coming back anytime soon. Do you feel good about Tutu getting, in the 6 to 8 to 9 targets a game type range?
It looks that way. It looks like they have relegated Van Jefferson to non-existent, and it's the Puka and Tutu show, which is awesome. What a name, right? Puka and Tutu.
Puka Tutu show.
And he is getting overshadowed by Puka right now because Puka's got 35 targets in the first 2 weeks, 20 this week, 15 last week, and Tutu's got half that. But 17 targets through 2 weeks is pretty good when you string them together with 13 receptions and 195 yards. That's pretty good. He scored 33 fantasy points and doesn't even have a touchdown yet. So that's going to come with this volume. This team is going to have to sling it. Their defense is not that good. They've lost a lot of guys on that defense. They're going to have to sling it. And you got Matt Stafford slinging it. That's not a bad thing. And I think Tutu is the wide receiver priority ad right now at an average of 29% on the 3 major platforms. If you need a wide receiver, you can put him in your line. I think it's safe to say right now with the targets he's getting, you can start him if you have a hole at wide receiver. He can be one of your wide receivers.
100% agree. 100% agree because they're going to have to throw it a bunch. I'm with you there.
Yes.
All right. This is definitely the priority ad at running back, though. Zack Moss from the Indianapolis Colts. This is the dude with JT out and potentially, we've heard rumors that he could be back. Taylor could be back in week 4, week 5, depending. But he was holding out and there was all sorts of confusion and now it's injury related. Like Zack Moss is the priority ad because he's their RB1. We saw in week 1 what they had behind him does not look great. He got you 88 yards, touchdown, got you receptions in the passing game. Now, listen, if you've been with us a long time, we haven't been the hugest Zack Moss fans, but the opportunity is huge here. People are worried about Anthony Richardson. They did not see Zack Moss coming, and Zack Moss ate today against the Houston defense. That also fed Anthony Richardson too. How do you feel about Zack Moss, and what do you think this looks like as we move forward?
Yeah, it's clear that he is the guy as long as JT is not there, right? If JT comes back in week 5, then you're not going to want any Zack Moss. But I don't know what's going to happen with JT. I don't know if they're going to actually entertain some trades and move him, or if he's going to come back and play, or if he's going to continue to hold out until he can't hold out anymore. There's a lot of question marks. But what I do know is that in week 1, we watched Deion Jackson rush 13 times for 14 yards. And I told you guys, put Zack Moss on the list. He didn't play. Nobody's thinking about him. People got to get him now. He's at 46% average, so he's probably only going to be available in about half of your leagues. But he is the guy. He is the Kyron Williams of week 1 when we told you to pick up Kyron Williams. And
we told you to pick up Zack Moss too. I mean,
well, right. But you have the opportunity now still to go get him because, his over 50% on Yahoo. He is over 50% on Sleeper, but he's only 30% on ESPN. So depending on what platform you're on, Zack Moss is available. He is going to get all the running back touches. He even got used in the passing game, which is nice to see. He had 4 targets for 4 receptions. He scored 20.7 fantasy points. And I will say this, though. It didn't look great before Richardson went out. Richardson was doing a lot of run, but that was only 2 series, and Richardson was just going nutso, right? So 2 or 3 series. So you want a running back that's going to get 20, 22, 25 touches in your lineup, just period. And it looks like Zack Moss is that guy for at least the next couple weeks. And if he can help you win a couple weeks, that could be the difference between making the playoff and not. So Zack Moss is my personal waiver wire ad of the week. Even though I've never been high on him, this is just too much opportunity.